Jim, I've actually been hounding you I was the guy emailing you about a year and a half ago.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I was trying to get in touch with you through Messenger, trying to get in touch with them because I just wanted the elusive Jim Krohn. I wanted Jim Krohn. I want Jim Krohn. I don't care about anything else. I say what?
I said I'm like the Sasquatch. I'm somewhere in the Canadian wilderness.
No, I've seen the Sasquatch a few times. I've seen you not very often, but I appreciate you doing this. Thank you for your time. And
yeah, no problem.
You're one of those designers, Jim. To me, you're one of those designers that they're omnipresent, underappreciated. That's just my opinion. Underappreciated, and you make such. Again, my opinion, you make such great games, and you do what an artist of many years as a musician, I'm going to say this, you will actually bring it down to a simplicity, but a beautiful simplicity. It's as if Beethoven would do a bagatelle. There's nothing to add, nothing to take away. We know every single note is in its exact place.
You're becoming a little too much. I mean,
no, but I'm just saying, Jim,
you've passed from the area of giving me a compliment to now I can no longer believe you.
No, man, I'm just telling you how I see Jim Krohn. Look, before I saw you yesterday, I didn't know what you looked like. You could have looked like whatever, but it's like you're nowhere to be found. I mean, I know the Player's Aid, by the way, don't mention that name here. It's not a good name, the Player's Aid, right? Whatever. The Player's Aid interviewed you. And I read the interview, but I mean, I couldn't read through I couldn't phrase what you were saying. So it was just like blah, blah, blah. But now I've spoken to you, 5-10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. And you got a sense of humor. You like hockey.
I do.
Too bad you're a Buffalo Sabres fan.
I feel the same way about too bad. Yeah. Buffalo
was the original. They were in the original 12. Was that right? Or the original 6?
No. They were in the 1970 expansion with Vancouver.
Really? That late?
Yeah. 70. Before that, it was like an AHL team. Bisons, I think it was.
The Bisons, eh? I prefer.
Anyway, you were saying I'm underappreciated. I don't feel underappreciated.
Well, no, that's probably the way I'm looking at it because we don't see a lot of you. Because now board game designers are becoming rock stars. Remember all the cooking shows before? Who knew what a chef was? Like, I mean, you know what a chef was, but now everybody knows Gordon Ramsay. Everybody knows Admiral Agassi, Jacques Pepin, Julia Child. They've become rock stars, and that's what's happening.
I don't know about that, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, all the millions you're getting from selling your games.
Millions. Yeah.
So okay. Let's. I'm hyperactive, Jim. So
I can tell.
Can you?
Yes.
My medication's not working, man. But anyway.
Yeah, it's not.
Jim, where are you from? Your name, Krohn. Where's that from?
Germany. My parents. Well, my dad came over earlier. Like earlier in his generations. My mom came over as an immigrant in the 50s after the war. And I guess I'm first generation American, at least on my mother's side.
You verstehen Sie Deutsch?
I used to speak okay, but I haven't really used it in the last 20 or 30 years. And so it's really, really bad. I can read it. If I'm looking at a map that has, a wartime map and it's in German, I know all those words. I can figure those out. But if someone starts talking, I get lost.
I see. Okay. So, I forgot to mention, sorry, we're actually live on my channel, but more so on the San Diego Historical Convention. This is a Harold Buchanan put together type thing. With obviously he had help from other people, but it's a wicked undertaking. And there's a lot of people. Have you heard of the San Diego Historicon?
Sure.
I mean,
absolutely.
Right now, there's Mark Herman there, Volko Ronke, Morgan is there, Harold is there. And,
those are the rock stars.
Well, Jim,
I'm like more of an opening band.
No, I wouldn't say that. No, you are. Okay, I'm gonna gush here, and then you're not gonna like it. So
don't gush. Don't gush. Just get to your questions, I guess.
I mean, there's bands like I don't know, Genesis, jazz bands like I can't even Pat Metheny, this and that. But then there's in the progressive rock field where Genesis is. There's Genesis. Actually, let me put it in hockey terms.
Okay.
Guy Lafleur.
Sure.
Remember Guy Lafleur?
I do.
Right.
Drafted in 70.
He was. You can't discount Guy Lafleur, man. He was a wicked hockey player. Even though you have the Wayne Gretzky's, Guy Lafleur still matters tremendously.
I would never argue with a fan of the Canadians about Guy Lafleur.
Anyways, so I even forgot what I was saying.
That's okay.
Okay. So before I'm gonna ask you what's happening in your head, brewing new games. Let's go back, okay?
All right.
And these games up here, this series up here.
Yes.
Now, who approached who? Did you approach? Did Grant Wiley of Worthington approach you, or did you make a pitch of sorts?
So, well, all right. If you want to start at the beginning, I had my first one was Space Empires, and I was working on that. It actually started in 1990-ish. I think it was 1990, where I was working on it. It was a monster game I played with my friends, and over time, I eventually streamlined it. And somewhere a decade later, like somewhere around 2000, I started sending it in to different companies, and it just kept on getting rejected. I probably got 4 or 5 rejections from different companies. And then it got to GMT, and GMT was tepid about it at first. They were looking at some other space games that they might bring in. And GMT, I think back in those days, was a little bit gun shy of space because they had that problem with Flagship. I think that kind of set them back a little bit. I'm reading between the lines. They've never told me that, but I think that was part of it. And so while it was sitting in GMT for a long time, I mean, years and years. I forget how long it sat at GMT, and it got kicked back and forth several times. It started off as a block game, and they wanted it 4-player, so we switched it to counters, and that was back in the time when there was really difficulty getting supply of blocks from Germany at any kind of decent price. And while I was sitting at GMT, I was designing Band of Brothers. And so when I was designing Band of Brothers, GMT was at that point, well, sure, we'll take a look at that too, because we've got Space Empires. But then I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to get out. I don't even know if Space Empires is going to make it out of GMT at this point. And so I contacted Worthington simply because I had played one of their games and liked it. And so they were excited about it, and they were like, yes, we love this. Please do this for us. And then I had designed a game called Rommel's Obsession, and Columbia Games actually had that. And so the reason why I was doing all this is because I didn't know if I'd ever get published. So I had a game at Columbia, a game at Worthington, and a game at GMT all at the same time. And then what happened through all of that is Columbia lost interest in Rommel's Obsession, and GMT and Worthington published the 2 games at almost the same time, even though they were designed at drastically different times.
You're talking now about Screaming Eagles and Space Empire.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And so when they did that, and when both those companies did that, then I was less interested. I've kind of let Rommel's obsession languish because I've been then working on these designs.
Now, I mean, the success that Space Empires has had probably solidified your reputation in GMT. I'm sure you can propose almost anything to GMT and it's going to be a go-ahead. Yes?
That's not how that works. I'm not at that level. No, really, GMT is great. They are very, very supportive. But I mean, they still have a lot of designers designing for them, and it never works like it's just a guarantee. I have a half a dozen other games that I haven't invested too much, because Space Empires, Talon, and Band of Brothers have been taking up all my time. I haven't invested a lot in those games, but it's not like companies are banging on my door saying, please give me your designs. You still have to kind of get through a process. I think I've got more rope than a new person for sure. I mean, it's really hard for a new person to get in unless they know some people. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd almost recommend, if you're going to be a new person, be a co-designer with somebody else, or get on playtest teams, get a reputation with a company, go to some conventions, because it's just very hard to get in. And that goes back to why I had 3 different games with 3 different companies, because I didn't know if any of them would get published.
Now, going to the Band of Brothers series, is that over and done with?
Oh, no, not by a long shot. So you've got replicators, right, for Space Empires?
Yes.
Okay, so replicators was really difficult for me to get right. So Close Encounters came out a year or a year and a half after Space Empires, relatively quickly, because it was all very easy, very clear as far as fitting in the system. And Replicators was really difficult because we were balancing an empire with a brand new, completely different ships, a brand new tech tree, the way it essentially achieved tech, a brand new way it basically did resource production, and balancing that across all those different maps. It took forever because I kept on breaking the empire in playtesting. And so then I would have to go back. Like that Replicators was really only a quarter of that box, and the other 3/4 were done, but it just kept on getting delayed because I kept on breaking the empire in playtesting, or my playtesters would. And Band of Brothers, where we're at, it all came out pretty quickly in a decent fashion. And then I got to Old Breed, which is the 1st Marine Division in Guadalcanal and New Guinea, Old Breed South Pacific, because there's actually it's really interesting to see the evolution of the Marines as it goes through World War II. They're vast, unlike the normal American infantry rifle squad. The Marines in 42 are different than the Marines in 43, and are completely different. Well, I shouldn't say completely different, but definitely different from the Marines in 44 and 45, which advocated, they were the advent of fire teams, I guess is the best way of putting it. And their squads get much more powerful as they go. So, but anyways, long story short, with all of that, working with the jungle and trying to get the feel of the jungle, and working with the Japanese and trying to get the feel of the Japanese, I was working with Dean Haley on that module. And that was my Replicators in that series. What Replicators was for Space Empires, this big hump I had to get over. Old Breed was that for me with Band of Brothers. It slowed me down completely. And the good news is, I think we've got that problem fixed, and I'm excited about Band of Brothers Old Breed going up on Kickstarter soon.
And it's going to be with Worthington?
Yes.
That system, and I was talking about simplicity before. Now you make these huge games, and it seems very complex. The amount of space and ideas you have for just Space Empires taking off here and there. Now, but your designs are elegant and simple.
Well, for a war game, obviously.
For a war game. I mean, look, the Band of Brothers. It's basically it's like there's no Krohn. It's you're a squad of soldiers. You're going in, and everything is simple. You got to fix, flank, and finish. That's what that game teaches you.
Right, right. And I believe that I think that's actually probably the thing that I would most be an advocate of for my own system, if I was toot my own horn, is that I was originally thinking that because I'm an old-time ASL player, and before that I was an old-time squad leader player. I grew up from like I was 12 years old on. I was playing squad leader like endlessly. And I really wanted something that didn't have the ASL rulebook. Honestly, that was kind of my first motivation to look at that. And then as I started doing research on the topic, I began to reevaluate how squad combat was played, how it was represented. And I give great props to John Hill, because that design, when I think about the other war games that were out in 1978, that the squad leader was just so far ahead of time. I still have it rated as a 10 on Board Game Geek because it was just an amazing design. But it really plays, and this is my opinion, I don't mean to offend any ASLers out there, but it really plays more like a 1970s, 1980s movie portrayal of World War II combat, and not at like real combat. And I could go into all the reasons behind why I think it's very, very flawed. But again, I'm not trying to down anybody. Some people have an ASL lifestyle. They just love ASL better than anything else. But it may have the largest rule book, but I think some of it is ridiculously unrealistic. And so that was the thing that pushed me over the hump, that made me finish designing Band of Brothers, I guess you could say.
Now, I mean, you were an ASL guy, so you came from basically a phone book in terms of rules to like 8 pages. Well,
the reason why I did that was because I'm kind of a gaming omnivore. If you only play one thing, it doesn't matter how complicated it is.
Right.
It's your thing. But I like all sorts of different things, and I have 3 kids, and then they were growing up. We would be playing Euros as a family at times. And I like games that I could just pick up and kind of remember where I was. And I tried to bake as much of the difficulty, the complexity, tried to bake it into the system as much as possible so that the player wouldn't have to remember it.
But I mean, in Band of Brothers, there's nothing complex about it.
Okay.
There's nothing complex about it.
Thank you.
No, but that's an incredible skill, and that's why I was saying, man, for lack of better word, to dumb it down so everybody understands, including myself, is a skill.
Okay.
It's a skill.
So what you're telling me is I made it so simple even a percussionist can understand it. Does everybody know that you're a percussionist?
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're right. Now, I'm bouncing back and forth.
Sure.
Do you have any military experience?
No. My family does. And I had an Air Force ROT scholarship when I was going off for engineering, but kind of at the last moment, I decided not to take it. So I never went into the service. Just done a lot of reading. Listen to
it's funny, eh? The Band of Brothers series, the way you're approaching it, and this is probably going to sound ridiculous, but it just popped in my head. It's the same way Ben Hull approaches Fields of Fire. Yes, there's way more detail, way more things happening, but it's fix, flank, and finish.
Yeah, that's what it needs to be.
Well, I guess.
Find, fix, flank, and finish, actually.
Okay, whatever, And
honestly, that's probably the one weakness of Band of Brothers. That sounds ridiculous. Of course it has weaknesses. You're trying to portray something that is impossible to portray.
Impossible.
But even with the concealment in Band of Brothers and the way that's encouraged, you still have way too much information about what's going on in the battlefield.
In Band of Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, that's unavoidable. I mean, I tried to limit that as much as possible.
Why, you wanted to do more fog of war type thing?
More fog of war is good. It really is, because the certainty that we often have in war games is especially wrong when you're talking about a squad level, I think. But I did the best I could on it. Actually, fog of war shows up even more so in Old Breed. We added a couple things into that because it's the jungle combat. We have a fog of war cup that is used where you can draw a unit out of it every turn, and it changes the force composition and changes the balance on the battlefield a little bit. We have things where if you're concealed in the jungle now, just even a unit moving next to you won't reveal your concealment. There's some things that we've done in there to really capture the jungle combat. You feel like, so when you play, if you play old Breed, it doesn't feel like the ETO. I mean, you're not in Kansas anymore. It feels like the PTO, and getting that feel was so ridiculously difficult. That's one of the reasons why Old Breed has taken so long.
Now, being in the jungle, are you going to incorporate silly things like tigers and snakes?
No, we do have. It is mandatory that you use the combat events table, because the Japanese, we represent some of the unique advantages the Japanese had, especially in the way of snipers, and they were just better off at night than we were. We represent that through the combat events table, and so you'll have to use at least the Japanese part of that, even if you don't want to use it for. We have a combat events table now, which is optional. But even if you don't want to use that part, you have to use the part that gives the Japanese a little bit of an advantage.
Okay. Let me go to my peanut gallery. These are the wonderful people who have joined us, and there's some serious questions here.
Both of them have questions?
Here we go. Hold on a second. Now, I remember asking, and I ask all interviewers, I say, please, I hope you have a sense of humor. You didn't answer me.
I didn't answer you about what?
Sense of humor.
I hope I have one. Yeah, I love life. So yeah, I'm joking around all the time.
That's good. Are you a Frank Zappa fan?
No, not really.
Okay, we got to talk.
All
okay,
right.
Hold on. Nathaniel Robinson has a questions here. So in Band of Brothers, there's a high chance units will lock up, not shooting or moving. Can you explain how you came up with the system for determining unit performance?
Well, so what really comes down to is, what were you trying to accomplish with small armed weapon fire? And what I came across just by reading casualty reports from World War II engagements, that you could have two companies facing off against each other for 20 minutes or more, and there'd be 3 casualties on each side. And essentially, what you're only going to cause casualties at a distance with heavy weapons, machine guns, or better yet, artillery. And the way you got the casualties was by laying enough fire down to keep their heads down so that you could cross the open ground. Without the suppression, the open ground was a deadly place to be.
Well, obviously.
And so if you needed to suppress them so that you could get close and finish them.
Right.
And the natural result of that is that if you cannot get a fire superiority in an area of the battlefield, you tend not to close. And that is very, very realistic. That is exact. Oftentimes units would just be firing at each other in World War II and never close. Now, in our scenarios, we try to pick situations that are a little bit more dynamic. And I have a little bit of a cheat in there, in that it's still more deadly. It's less deadly than other systems, but it's still more deadly than it will be. If you're in a foxhole, no first line unit is going to cause you casualties, essentially, from a distance. They'd have to get next to you to cause casualties. They'll just suppress you. But you can still get some significant casualties from heavy weapons. And I did that just to speed up the game. If I wanted to make it more realistic still, I would increase everybody's casualty numbers by 2 and increase everybody's firepower by 1. And you would get far more suppressions and a little bit less casualties. And then what would happen was the game would take a lot longer, but it'd be more realistic. And so by setting the values where I at, it plays realistically and rewards the right kind of tactics, but it won't take forever.
You see here, combat. See, this is what I was trying to say eloquently, but I couldn't say. Is Band of Brothers is simple without being simplistic?
Good.
Yes, of course, good.
Thank you.
It's like, as I said, it's an art. It's an art. Are you? Do you teach?
Do I teach? Yeah, actually, I'm a pastor.
Okay.
I left engineering and I went into the pastorate, and I also teach in a high school, a Christian high school, and so I teach history. So I love to teach.
Do the students love you?
To my face, they love me.
No, but I mean, there's another designer called Jeremy M. White. He did the Enemy Coast Ahead.
Okay.
Now, your games, I can grasp them right away, and that's something, because for me, I don't grasp anything. And Jeremy, the way he writes his rule book, he's basically telling you, here's your nose, here's your finger, this is how you pick your nose, and he'll draw it for you, and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. That's what I want. So that's what I'm saying. The students must love you, because it's concise and clear.
Good. Yeah, that's what I'm shooting for.
Bloody hell. I thought you would have had more of a discourse than, yeah, good. But anyways, Jim, I digress. Hey, Jim, did you know that Lenin's grave was a communist plot?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so here we go. Let's get into, okay. Martin, if I were to start playing Band of Brothers series, would Ghost Panzer be a good place to start? As a matter of fact, that's a great question. Like, can you just pick any one of these and start, or must you go in you know, what's that word I'm trying to use?
Sequence.
Sequence.
I would say the three places to start would be Screaming Eagles, Ghost Panzer, or Old Breed. Now, which one you would pick would be dependent upon, and Old Breed's not out yet, just to be clear.
Right.
But, which one you would pick would depend upon what your preferences are. If you like Western combat in ETO and you want the simplest, it would be Screaming Eagles. If you like adding in more tanks, then you would want to play Ghost Panzers. There's more tanks involved there. And if you want the jungle, it's more complicated yet still, because it adds in some special rules for the jungle and stuff like that. But then you would want Old Breed.
Now, in terms of balance, so you got Band of Brothers happening. You would figure that it's more to the American side. So, and I'm just thinking out loud here. Then you go Ghost Panzer, so it's balanced more towards the German side. And then you come back with the Texas Arrows. Am I wrong or am I right?
I don't know what you're asking to tell you.
What I'm trying to say is that the covers here, the covers, are these games, are they balanced as far as your designs, or is it one-sided per scenario or whatever?
Well, it's fairly asymmetric in different ways. In Screaming Eagles, you have an elite American unit, essentially the 101st Airborne, going against average or sometimes below average German troops. And then in Ghost Panzer, you have perhaps the best division in the German army during World War II, the 11th Panzer, going against some really, really bad Russian troops, especially in the beginning of the war. And then Texas Arrows is more balanced in the sense that you have first-line American troops going against first-line German troops in a lot of scenarios. And so as far as quality of units, it's less asymmetric than the other two.
See, that was a pertinent question, Jim. Pertinent. Now, okay, hold on. Let me see here. Okay, so Space Empires and Talon.
Yes.
All right? Talon. Now, why? For me, Talon is an offshoot of Space Empires, because your designs are tactical. You're a tactical guy.
Okay. Space Empires are strategic.
Well, I find Space Empires a tactical game.
I think of it as a strategic one. I think Talon is the tactical, but that's just me.
No, well, you're probably right because you're the designer. But I mean, well, as grand scope as Space Empires is, I still find it close and personal. I don't know why.
Sure. So the three games all have something in common in the sense that they were all things that I loved as a teenager that took forever to play. And then I became an old man with kids and didn't have that forever time and didn't have the time to spend in the rules or whatever. I didn't have that luxury. So I was a fan of squad combat and playing that out through Squad Leader and ASL. And that's what led me to Band of Brothers. I was a fan of massively complicated. I had basically, essentially, with a friend of mine, designed an incredibly complicated. It just takes 7 nights to play, epic space opera kind of game. And from that, I was like, I don't have time for that anymore. And from that was born Space Empires. And I used to love playing Starfleet battles when I was a teenager, also. And Talon is not Starfleet battles. I mean, that you can see some relation to it. You can see that there's some shared ideas in there, but it's more about what I wanted, which was not filling out log sheets one ship on one ship. It's more about squadron or fleet combat, depending on how you want to look at it. I like playing. I almost don't play Talon anymore unless I have more than 6 ships on a side. And so again, the purpose then of Talon was, in order to do that, I had to have everything on the board, so it kind of functioned as a giant heads-up display. And so because once you get up to 6 ships, you can't be referencing off-board charts. But if you can just look at everything on the board and see the state of everything, what shields are down, what shields are up, what weapons are ready to go, etc., then you can end up playing on an incredibly large number of ships all at the same time.
Now, Jim, you said space opera, okay? And for some reason, why have you not done like a Twilight Imperium?
Because I prefer Space Empires. I designed what I liked.
I understand.
I mean, I don't mind the idea of playing an epic game because that's how Space Empire started.
Yeah.
I tried to capture all the epicness and get it in something you can get done in a night. Now we do sometimes, like I haven't posted this yet, but for the final expansion for Space Empires that's going to be coming, I did actually just play with my son, his wife, my 2 daughters, and my youngest daughter's husband. We played a 6-player version of Space Empires, and using both maps from Talon. So if you have Talon, the full-size map and the half-size, put it all together. We used all of that together and did 6-player. My son and I versus the other 4, because my son was my primary playtester with Space Empires, and he's good at the game. And so it was us 2 against 4 people that were, I love them, they're family, but they're not quite as good. I'm not complaining. I got my 2 daughters and my daughter-in-law and my son-in-law playing Space Empires with me. I'm a very happy man.
Yeah.
But that game was epic. That one took an entire Saturday from like when we from the early afternoon all the way to late at night. But that was a lot of fun.
I'm sure, man. I'm a solo guy because nobody likes me. But anyways, well, I think we got Grant happening here. Look at that, huh?
Look at that.
Look at that. And Grant keeps going. Poor tactics, eh, Grant? Well, yeah, poor tactics. But I mean, if you keep pouring on the guys, banzai is, you're gonna freak out the Americans, man. So maybe that's a tactic. Hey, Grant.
Well, and that was one of my problems with Old Breed, was that the Japanese began to realize, actually fairly quickly, the smarter commanders did, that banzai charges were stupid. Were almost always a waste of men and material. They did them in desperate situations. But the best Japanese commanders stopped doing that. However, down in the lower ranks, there was still the idea of, we're going to Seishin is one of their terms, spirit that this through their spirit, and especially that's going to overcome all obstacles. If you've ever heard, like, I don't know if you guys have, if any of you have watched Stargate,
Yeah.
the Jaffa, who, you know, he will succeed because his cause is just. And you're like, I wish it worked that way. Some of the Japanese, it's not exactly like that, obviously, but some of the troops actually had that belief. They almost to the point where they would eschew really firing when they were getting up close, but they wanted to get the Americans with their steel, whether that was a sword or whether that was with bayonet. And so one of the things we had to do was encourage that behavior in a realistic way. And essentially, the Japanese are very bad at melee for that reason, except if they're charging and they cause the melee. And so we introduced the concept of Seishin into Old Breed, which encourages, in the right circumstances, encourages Japanese to charge. And so it, again, what I'm always trying to do is try to capture the right tactics by having the rules make you play those right tactics. Like in Screaming Eagles, very obviously you want to find, fix, flank, and finish, and it's set up that way through the system. In Ghost Panzer, you know, why did Russian tanks always seem to charge? I developed a proficiency system, and the Russians have low proficiencies on their tanks, and what that causes, you know, they're always trying to close so they don't have to make a proficiency roll. And that's exactly how the Russians behaved and employed their tanks. And so we try to make the system such that it encourages the historical tactics. And so capturing that with Old Breed was difficult because, again, even the Japanese leaders started to see that it wasn't always the best tactic to be doing bonsai charges.
It's funny when designers talk about the Pacific Theater, it freaks me out. It's like Vietnam. I would hate to be there. I'd rather be in the European theater for some reason, because I guess there's roads and buildings and anyways, whatever.
I don't think you're alone there.
Yeah, I know. And you know what? The PTO doesn't get enough love, obviously. And there were some of the fiercest battles fought, man. A lot of men were lost in the Pacific Theater.
Yeah, Old Breed is bloodier than the other boxes in the series for that reason.
And I completely forgot what you got to say. Jim, you interrupted me and you broke my train of thought. Now, what am I going to do?
You're just going to move on to something else. You're good at bouncing around.
Yeah. Okay, so here you go.
What was that? I saw a question come up on the screen. Just the Old Breed ?
Hold on a second. Oh, no, that was that Wardy robe. I call him the Hugh Hefner of war games, because the guy wears a robe in his videos. I mean, yeah, whatever. So he asks Grant, what's in the pipeline for Band of Brothers? And Grant answers, just the Old Breed.
Well, actually, that's not the case.
There you go.
The very next module will be after Old Breed. Assuming Old Breed is well accepted, will be Stalin's favorite. And if you go with Ghost Panzer, it's centered on the German 11th Panzer Division, and it really kind of peters out at Kursk. They go to the west in 44, and you know there is a 44 scenario in Ghost Panzer, but what Stalin's favorite is going to do is going to be centered on the 2nd Guards Tank Army, and Beresford Dickens put a lot of work into that, and then and that basically picks up from 43 on to finish the war, and it has all of the large behemoth vehicles that aren't in Ghost Panzer. It kind of fills that niche and follows them all the way basically up to fighting in Berlin. The last scenarios are taking Berlin.
Jim, this goes back to my aren't you going to add any tigers and stuff? It's like the weather, I guess. There's got to be a random events chart where you step on a scorpion or something, man. No?
Well, the combat events table.
So there's going to be some random events like that?
Yeah, I mean, there actually is. It's an optional rule now. Not everybody loves the combat events table. Some people like to have more certainty. But so we added that in. It's for the ETO, it's optional. And it happens basically on certain rolls that you'll generate a combat event. And then for the Pacific, you can use that part. It's still optional to use that part of the table, but then there's a second table we use for the Japanese that must be used.
And the reason why I'm blabbing two or three times about this question is because I was watching a YouTube channel where some Marines were just walking, I don't know, in Afghanistan somewhere, and they're walking in single file, and all of a sudden they're getting shot at, right? So they duck. There's a little bit of a some sort of barrier, and they're there. And the guy's got a GoPro on his head, so he's filming all this. And all I noticed, other than the bullets whizzing by them, are these huge hornets flying around these guys as they're having a firefight.
That'd be terrible, man.
That's terrible.
Hornets are nasty.
I mean, someone's trying to kill you, and you got this hornet. So, and that's when I thought, man, that's part of the battlefield. It's where you are.
So then I would recommend you play with the combat events table.
Absolutely. All right, here, hold on a second. Jim, there was another question here concerning, Now we're going to Space Empires now.
So the final expansion for Space Empires is going to be called Space Empires All Good Things. COVID. Sorry about that. It is going to be the final expansion. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, it contains all of the last of the cool ideas. There's enough in that series that I don't need to put out the mediocre ideas. So there's no more good ideas after this. And then the other reason why I did it, or I want it to be the last expansion, is because I want to do the master rule book, the master scenario book. There'll be a master competitive scenario book. There'll be a master solo scenario book. And what that will do, we'll just put a final capstone on the system. There's a lot of cool things in it. And then it'll help the completionists as well. They can get that, and they can know they have the end of it, and there's no more coming out after that.
So you're wrapping it up.
Yeah. And that'll also give me a chance to move on to some other designs as well.
And that was my next question. What's brewing in your head in terms of subjects?
Well, before we get there, let me say that it should be up on Space Empires All Good Things should be up on P500 for GMT soon. So people will see this. People get a chance to pre-order that soon.
Yeah.
As far as other topics I have, I don't want to tell you the ones that are still baby, I guess, or still not far enough along. But I've still got Rommel's Obsession, and I had meant to go back to that. Maybe I'll go back to that at some point. I'm not 100% happy with it because I designed it 15 years ago, and I think I've grown a little bit. So I'd like to improve it. I've enjoyed the game back when I played it, but it's kind of lined fallow for a while. I need to put some improvement in, and that's always been my thought of that was always part of a series that would be Battles of Attrition, because in the system as it is designed is meant to portray battles where both sides have to attack, and attrition was a factor. And so I thought I would move on from that eventually. If I can get it nailed down on Rommel's Obsession, the next battle I was thinking about going on to was Kursk, which is something that I'm kind of excited about getting to one day, simply because so much has changed in our understanding of Kursk in the last 20 or 30 years. And I might call that game Manstein's Kursk, because he believed it was winnable for the Germans. And he may have been right. And what happened was, because of the invasion in Sicily, all of the best units got pulled out of there, and then they had to basically cease the offensive. But Perovchika, or I mess up that name, but the largest tank battle ever it's kind of this myth that the Russians fought the Germans to a standstill there. They actually got wiped out. And so there is, and Manstein was like no slouch, as you know.
No.
So there is real good credence to think that if those troops were not pulled out, it could have been a battle that would have been won. And I thought that would be just fun to do. and there's certainly an undercovered subject. On the space front, I have this game, which is, I don't know have a good name for it. It's called Space Empires Family, maybe, or Simple Space Empires. It's not, all it shares with Space Empires is the theme, but it's a fun little game. I need plastic ships for it. I can't, it's really simple, super simple. When I'm talking simple, I'm talking 3 or 4 pages of rules simple. And it's really quick. Anybody can play it, multiplayer or whatever. And it's really fun. It's kind of addicting for what it is, but that needs a little bit more polishing too. And right now, Old Breed and Space Empires is taking up all my time. So when I get past those, that might be something that sees the light of day. I also designed a game called Time Comp, which was my only Euro that I've designed. And in that game, you get to go back in time to, what happens is essentially if you understand the basic concept of a Euro where you're trying to do things to get victory points, this one allows you not only to get victory points, but it allows you to change the timeline so that things are valued differently. So, for instance, you could make your society more Spartan in its nature, and then military things are worth more victory points. And I have a good, I think a kind of a clever timeline thing where one event can flip things in the future as well. It's a fairly quick playing game, but again, that one needs a little bit of love. I think what I need for that one is outside playtesters, but those are just some of the things I've got. And then I've got another game, which I really want to do, but it's still not done yet. And I don't want to reveal what it is until I get a little farther along.
Hey, come on. We're a small family here. No one's going to say anything.
Just me, you, and everybody at San Diego Historicon. This is a group.
So, Jim,
I don't want to overpromise. I said I don't want to overpromise.
Oh, I see. It's funny. Hugh Hefner here asks, "What are the new things we've learned about Kursk?"
Essentially, that for instance, Perovchika was not this big fight where the Russians fought them to a standstill, but it was actually an annihilation. The Russians just got destroyed. Very, very few tank casualties on the German side, and it was not as it was portrayed. Was the German army had nothing left, and it's true that they had lost a lot of tanks going through the defensive belts around Kursk, but what really ended that offensive was not the fact that it was slow at that point, because they were just about the point where they were breaking through. They had just about worn down the Russians to the point where they could be broken through. But then you take away your best panzer divisions, and of course, well, that's going to end the offensive at that point. So basically, if you would have asked me this question in the 90s, I would have said, well, what happened was the Russians fought them to a standstill, and so they ended the offensive, and then they transferred some troops over to the Western Front to deal with the Allied invasions in the Med. And in reality, if you ask me that question now, I would say, actually, they were on the cusp of possibly winning, but then the Allied invasions of the Med caused them to pull the troops out. But that's what ended the offensive.
Nathaniel Robinson asks, are you going to add a DN Cisco into the game?
I don't think I should do anything that would get me in copyright trouble. I guess. Talon, my next plan box for Talon is called Galaxy at War, and it has two more empires. It's a standalone box. It'll have 2 more empires, and then I plan on, after that, if that works out well, having Talon 2000, which would be similar to Talon 1000, where it will expand those 2 empires out completely, and that'll be dependent. But all 4 of the empires then could be played against each other. So you'll have a lot more replayability. The 2 are very different. However, there is something else which I really can't talk about yet that is a possibility that has kind of caused me to pause that. And partly also because I have to get Old Breed and All Good Things finished. I have to make sure that I have to land those 2 planes before I can really put a lot of time into something else.
So when you design a game like Band of Brothers, do you know what publisher you're aiming at for the game that you want published?
Well, my first three games, Band of Brothers, Space Empires, and Rommel's Obsession, I had no idea. I was just desperately trying to get somebody to, pay attention to this guy over there waving at him. And now I would think I'd have an idea because of obviously the relationships I have built.
Now you before I don't know the dates there, but before you did Band of Brothers, you had Space Empires out already, right?
No, they both came out I think the same year.
Right, you said that before. See, I remember. So yeah, okay.
Space Empires was designed first, and it was in the pipeline. And while it was in the pipeline, I wasn't sure if it was going to get accepted. That's when I did Band of Brothers, and then that got in the pipeline. And then while those both were in the pipeline, that's when I did Rommel's Obsession, and that was in the pipeline. And then two of them came out of the pipeline, and the third one has been ignored since then.
I'm going to bounce around, Jim. I'm sorry. Conventions. Do you go to conventions?
I would love to go to conventions. However, I haven't been able to.
I mean, you mean like the rest of the world haven't been able to? Or you just, like a couple of years ago, you wanted to go, but you couldn't go because whatever?
Well, so in addition to being a pastor, I also run a summer camp.
Right.
And so I wanted to go to WBC. It's not that far from me, it's just in Pennsylvania. And it's kind of like the convention I've always wanted to go to. And I almost had a chance to go. But part of it is I just don't have a lot of time. And so with all that I'm doing, I guess all my free time goes to game design. So it's game design or conventions, but I would have a blast. I love just sitting down playing designs with different people.
Oh, I mean, I've only been to one con in my life in the States, and it was WBC, the last one, and I had a blast. I felt like a little kid. Every morning I'd get up with a little bit of a hangover, and I felt like a little kid, like, hey, Mark Herman, how are you? Hi, John Butterfield, what's going on? Are you kidding me, man? Are you kidding me?
That's cool. I'd love to be there. It'd be nice to meet you.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So
one day, it'll happen one day.
Yeah, I hope this COVID. I mean, anyway, I like the rest of the world. I hope it just stops for God's sake.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I mean, now designing a game. Who did you steal from? What
do you mean? Like steal ideas from, or steal topics from, or
no? Who did you steal? Well, I'm gonna say mechanics.
Well, so you could say that I might have at one point thought about stealing mechanics from ASL until I realized that I really didn't like anything. None of it was broken in a sense of realism.
Oh my God! You're gonna get you're gonna get grief.
I know. Listen, it's a fun game. I guess
you're gonna get grief for saying that.
Was it?
You're gonna get grief for saying ASL is broken.
As far as representing anything related to reality, it is. I don't know. And listen, I played it. I by the way, okay. So this is what'll get me in trouble. It was painful for me because I worshipped Squad Leader. I mean, Squad Leader was just awesome. I can't tell you how much I played it. Cross of Iron, all the Scenario 100s, Scenario 200s. I played them to death. I tapered off a little bit in Crescendo of Doom. Anyway, and then I made the faithful switch to ASL, and I loved it. And so when I started to, like, in my mind, again, people are gonna hate me for it. It was like I began to see that the Emperor had no clothes. I was just like, I had this cognitive dissonance that I couldn't. I was like, no, I can't. It can't be. And so it was. I've kind of likened it to coming out of a cult. I was in the ASL cult, and I designed something different, and it was very painful. But if I'm at a con, if I get to a con, and someone asks me to play a game, I'll sit down and play a game of ASL with them. I'll play a game of Squad Leader with them. I don't hate on them. I just let's just realize that someone who's broke shouldn't be broke forever. You shouldn't need a leader to run in there. Their squad leadership was there. You shouldn't know the state of how they're going to respond. It's better to roll at the moment you try to use them as opposed to roll ahead of time. Tanks shouldn't be able to spin around, fire their machine guns to make sure that they get their front armor against another thing. You shouldn't be able to use the vehicle bypass sleeves. I mean, I did these things. I sculpt, and as I would read, I was like, man, I got to get rid of skulking. I'd have thoughts like this because I actually used those things as a player. And I was like, I need to have a system that makes it so that you're not incentivized to do these bizarre things. And so where do I borrow from? I would say Talon uses the impulse system that is in Starfleet Battles. And I played Starfleet Battles. So I'm not saying I took it directly, but it's definitely influenced me. The way, what else? I didn't really borrow from anybody for Space Empires because the foundation of that was this massive epic game, that I had part of the design of, and that was the inspiration for that. So I didn't really borrow from there. But there's no way any designer can say that the games they play don't impact them in some way. You just don't realize it. It's subconscious.
Of course.
So I'm a gaming journalist. I said that already. I'm sure that every game I've played, it's kind of comes out in my designs in some way.
Yeah, I was going to ask you this. Kabuki Kid asks, any non-war games?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I have 3 kids. They're all grown now, but we grew up at times, you want to sit down and play a 5-player game before they go to bed. My wife and I and our 3 kids, we're going to play a Euro. So I've played a lot of Euros. One of my favorite Euros was Age of Empires 3. I really enjoyed that game, even with the plastic.
Is that a Vlada Shvatil game?
No, that's a Dover game.
Okay.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed that, and I played some Terraforming Mars recently.
How did you like that?
I like Terraforming Mars a lot. It's fun. My family likes it too. You just want me to list Euros that I like?
Yeah, like what's that? Like what? Yeah, what do you guys? Yeah,
I enjoy
the most played Euros you guys played.
Clank. We like Clank. Yeah. I love Caverna. My family loves Caverna less than I do.
Oh, okay, Caverna. That's a Uwe Rosenberg.
And it's a simpler version of Agricola in many ways. And also, I think I enjoy it more than I enjoy Agricola. But my family doesn't enjoy it as much as me. So they'll play it with me sometimes. But I enjoy that. Stone Age is a good game. St. Petersburg. I'm high on St. Petersburg. I know that's an older one, but we have a lot of good family memories playing that game.
Jim, we're just about done with that time. Do you want any questions answered that I have not asked?
You did a good job of bouncing around. I think you covered
See, you don't know me. I guess you're learning to know me. I bounce around like crazy. Like, oh my God, look, there's a red squirrel. What did Kabuki Kid say? And like, what's going on? That's the way my brain works. But when I focus,
yeah.
So okay, let's see here. La 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 la. Oh, Lord of the Rings, man.
I've seen him on that forum. Oh yeah. I haven't played it a lot. And I actually asked some questions because I thought, the Strider Sprint seemed to be such a powerful thing. I played it back when Due North was a thing, and that kind of made me put the game away for a little bit, and then it got fixed. I think it really got fixed well in the next edition, and then Strider Sprint I think is pretty strong right now. But again, that's another one of those games where I think I like it more than my family, and so I don't play it as often.
Okay, yeah, you're a pastor. Obviously, you have a sense of humor. The War of the Rings, that's a Reiner Knizia, right?
No. Not that War of the Ring. I forgot the designers. It's the big one. It's the big box. The one where there's that fantastic painted version out there that
Oh, you got the big box with all
I
the
don't have.
and all that?
I don't have the one of the really amazing nice ones. I just have the production model. But yeah, I was just trying to get you thinking about the right game there.
Right, okay. Because I was gonna say, man, you got to be a multi-billionaire from selling all these games. You can afford anything.
Actually, yeah, and one of the reasons why because I used to, again, as a kid, I used to play the old Lord of the Rings Battles for Middle Earth game,
Right.
Gondor and Sauron. I used to play that, and that was kind of broken too. So I thought they did a great job with Lord of the Ring. You know, the other game that I think they do a great job of is what I mean as far as like a big topic, and making it really playable is Star Wars Rebellion. I like that game a lot.
Star Wars Rebellion, eh? It's funny. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I never played any Star Wars games. But like I said, there's not many solo Star Wars games, right?
Hey, let me give a shout out to some other war games that I like.
Go ahead.
So Sekigahara,
Yes.
great game.
See how much? Did you see how much money that guy made from Sekigahara? He's a billionaire now.
Well, he deserves it because that was a good game.
Sure.
I really enjoy that. I like so that's a GMT game. I really like the Hold Fast East Front from Worthington Games.
Worthington, okay, yeah.
I really enjoyed that game. And then from Columbia Games, I'm still a fan of Hammer of the Scots.
Okay.
Countless hours playing that with my son. That still hits the table fairly often.
That's
so shout out to those 3 games.
Oh, I thought we were going to have a dissertation here of games that Jim Krohn likes. Okay, I know.
Well, I picked 3 of my favorite. I thought, top 3. You said we were running out of time here.
Yeah, I know. But I have one. Well, I'm going to end it
off.
off.
I'm giving you old-timey. Surprisingly good. And again, this goes back to me playing it as a kid. Fortress America. And
Seriously?
I know people to call it Fortress Ameritrash, but that game is really, I'm always into that game when I play it. Anyway.
Maybe it's that trailer part of you, you know?
I don't know what you mean.
Buffalo Bills, man, 4 times. They never made it.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me. We had no idea. Let's
not talk politics. So when you design a game, do you focus 100% on one game, or do you have many designs going at once? Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Kabuki's got many designs going at once. Jim?
Many.
See?
They're all in the head, percolating.
You see?
They can be distracting.
Well, of course, man. But you're not, you don't seem to be hyperactive at all. You seem to be quite logical.
Well, I'm an engineer by original training. So yeah, I help. And I'm also old, like you.
I'm 56. I'm older than you, Jim.
I know, I'm 53, and that's old. Come on. It's old. And so I've slowed down a little bit.
Okay. Jim, thank you so much for putting up with me. I know it's not easy.
No, yeah, I've enjoyed it.
And you got that blue hue happening. It looks like you're one of these an underwater, like what do they call those Star Wars guys? The Nubians.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, Jim, stick around. People, thank you very much for asking questions. Kabuki, Gilbert. By the way, I got the game, and I owe you $50 for shipping. Nice try. And now, Jim, I'm gonna, because this is such a pro show. By the way, all the editing is done by me. All the music is done by me. Everything is me, Jim. Everything. It's like in the movie The Jerk with Steve Martin when they said, "Oh my God, you're so self-centered." Where else you want me to center myself? Anyways,
wonderful job.
Say what?
I said you did a wonderful job.
It was easy with you, Jim. So stick around. Here's my intro. Thank you, people, and hasta la vista. Sayonara.